Welcome to Into the Night. I'm Nari, your guide on today's excursion down a twisted path. Be careful not to get lost. Be it dark or light, it's easy to lose your way. Are you ready? Then let's begin. The Stowaway. Part 1. Turbulence jostled the plane to and fro as passengers gripped their seats and worried about those peanuts they'd eaten earlier. The flight attendants offered words of encouragement to the people now giving each other frantic looks. Prayers were whispered and a few curse words were shouted.
This is your captain speaking. I apologize for the rough ride. We've encountered some turbulence thanks to the thunderstorms moving into the Cincinnati area. We should be out of this soon, but remain in your seats and continue to keep your seatbelts fastened.
Ryan Taylor closed his eyes for a moment to calm his roiling stomach.
All I wanted was a quick business trip to Cincinnati with a chance to catch a Reds game. I hate flying. Why didn't I just drive?
The flight attendant placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Are you doing okay?
Do you want a lie or the truth?
She chuckled. Whichever makes you feel better.
Looks like you get a lie then. I'm great.
The rocking of the plane forced the attendant to stagger and cling to the seats. Still, she almost toppled over. Her name tag said Cheryl.
There's an empty seat right here, Cheryl. Here, sit by me. It's not safe for you to be standing, and you could get hurt.
She hesitated, but then another jolt of turbulence nearly sent her to the floor. Maybe taking a seat is a good idea after all. He moved his briefcase from the empty seat.
It's nice to meet you. My name's Ryan Taylor.
I'm Cheryl Lawson. It's nice to meet you too. This flight is a lot bumpier than usual.
You fly this route often?
Yes, it's my regular assignment. After the way this flight's been, I'm glad to have a 3-day break once we get to Cincinnati.
I'm going to be there for 3 days too.
Say, do you like baseball? I love baseball. You couldn't grow up in my house without loving baseball. My dad practically had a shrine set up of Reds memorabilia.
Ha! My family is a huge baseball family, too. I swear my mom would have left Dad if Johnny Bench had winked at her. She said she'd had a crush on him since she was a little girl.
Oh, back in the Pete Rose days. My mom said she had posters of him up in her room.
Those were definitely the glory days, weren't they? My company gave me 2 box seats to tomorrow's game. Would you want to go with me?
Cheryl didn't hesitate. I'd love to go. I'll give you my number once we land and we can make arrangements.
How about we go to dinner tonight too?
Let's. The captain interrupted them.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are through the worst of the turbulence. I apologize for the rough ride. We are preparing to make our descent for landing. Remain buckled in. The flight attendants will assist you with anything you need before we land. Thank you for flying with us today.
Looks like I'm back on duty. Wait for me by the baggage claim.
Oh, I only brought a carry-on.
He pointed at the overhead bin. Oh, then if you don't mind, wait for me at the gate. It will take me about a half an hour to get off the plane.
I don't mind at all. I'll see you there.
Cheryl was called by a passenger who needed her to take the pillow she'd provided earlier, so she smiled at Ryan and hurried down the aisle. After the turbulence fright, passengers breathed a sigh of relief when the plane touched down without incident. Cheryl smiled at Ryan as he exited the plane, and he gave her a wink. Half an hour later, she met him at the gate. Is it okay if I take a few minutes to change clothes? I didn't bring anything fancy, but I'm ready to wear something other than this. She pointed at her attendant uniform.
Of course. While you're changing, think of where you'd like to go to dinner. I don't know Cincinnati that well.
That's easy. I know a great Italian restaurant not too far from here.
Italian is my favorite. See you in a few. My rental car should be waiting for us.
The two spent dinner talking and laughing.
I can't believe how much we have in common.
Or that we met through turbulence. Cheryl's green eyes sparkled when she laughed.
Talk about a rough start, right?
He held her hand, and the sparks weren't just in Cheryl's eyes. They both felt them when they touched. Her cheeks flushed enough that Ryan noticed even in the low light of the restaurant. She squeezed his hand. I feel like I could talk with you for hours and never get tired of it. But it's getting late, and you have your business to take care of in the morning. They made plans to see each other the next day after Ryan's business meeting. I have some places around town I want to show you, and then we can go to the game.
That sounds perfect. I'll drive you home and then head to my hotel.
Ryan paused and looked at her.
I can hardly wait to see you tomorrow.
He drove her to her apartment and walked her to the door. The night ended with a long kiss goodnight. The next day, the moment he finished with his meetings, he called Cheryl.
I'll need about a half an hour to get to my hotel and change clothes. Should I pick you up?
I was thinking, since I know my way around town, I should drive. Your hotel is actually close to where I grew up. I can start by taking you around my old neighborhood.
I'll see you in a half an hour. I'll be waiting in the lobby.
Ryan liked the way this trip was going.
And I thought the highlights would be securing this new account and going to tonight's game. Now, well, she's one heck of a girl.
In exactly 30 minutes, he met Cheryl in the lobby. He liked her sense of timeliness and assumed it came with her having to keep such a tight schedule as a flight attendant.
Where to first?
How about the high school I went to? It's not very far.
We have until the game to go wherever you want. Lead the way.
He took her hand and they walked out into the summer sun. Her blonde hair glistened in the sunlight, and he was pretty certain he'd found an angel. Cheryl drove him from one point of interest to the next, and she usually had a funny story or two about each stop.
You're the most entertaining tour guide, and the prettiest, too.
He leaned down and kissed her.
Well, you're the cutest guy I've ever taken on a tour.
We'd better get on our way to the stadium, though. The traffic's going to be crazy down there. They held hands, cheered, and even made it onto the big screen at the ball game. A win by the Reds only added to the evening. She drove him back to the hotel, and they walked along the sidewalk from the parking lot.
I was wondering, if you wouldn't mind, how much longer you have off before you have to leave for work on another flight.
I'm off until Wednesday. Why?
If you wouldn't mind, I have some vacation time to use, and I'd like to stay here in Cincinnati a while longer so I could see you.
I do have a busy social calendar for the week. Ryan's heart dropped.
Oh, it was just an idea.
Cheryl playfully slapped him on the arm. I'm joking, Ryan. I'd love for you to stay. He picked her up in his arms and spun her around.
You had me worried.
No worries. I'll come by tomorrow morning and pick you up. You choose the time.
8 o'clock? Or is that too early?
Not too early. I'll meet you back here then. A few long kisses capped off their date. The next morning, Cheryl greeted him at the doors of the hotel. She hugged him, but it was tighter, more desperate than Ryan expected. He looked down at her.
Hey, are you okay?
She let go of him, but trembled, her voice wavering when she answered him. Not really. I need us to go someplace where we can talk.
Oh, Lord, this doesn't sound good. I've read too much into this. She has a boyfriend. Or worse, a husband.
Ryan's head spun as they walked to Cheryl's car.
Are you sure you should drive? You seem shaken up.
Yeah, I can drive. We're going back to my apartment. There's something I have to show you. They said few words during the drive, but Cheryl's hand gripped his the entire way. They reached her apartment complex and they climbed the stairs to her unit. She stopped at the door before unlocking it. I don't want you to think I'm crazy, Ryan.
I won't. Just show me what this is all about.
The moment they entered the apartment, Ryan saw newspapers spread open all over the living room. Now he really wondered what was going on. Sit down, and I'll bring them to you. Last night when I got home, I decided to go through the stack of newspapers that had piled up while I've been gone. One by one, she carried the obituary section of the newspapers to him. The photographs of the deceased stared up at him from the pages. She had circled some of the obituaries. Martin Keller, Harriet Barton, Lionel Case, Quentin McDaniel, Laura Renner. He quickly read through each obituary.
Cheryl, I don't understand. Why are you showing me these? Are these family members of yours?
No, I barely know them.
Then why are you so upset?
They have one thing in common, Ryan. She wiped a tear away with a trembling hand. Taking a jagged breath, she continued. They were all on flights I worked, and they all sat in seat 3C, just like you.
That's definitely a weird coincidence.
There's more. During the flight, each of them only had a carry-on bag that they stored in the overhead bin. I think it's connected somehow.
There's nothing strange about that.
No, but I ran into each of these passengers again. They'd come up to me at the airport and said they remembered I'd been their flight attendant. All of them asked me if anything strange had happened on the plane, specifically with seat 3C. I thought it was an odd question for them to ask, but they seemed riled up and scared. They even hugged me and told me to stay safe. I had a really bad feeling after each encounter, but I don't know why. I'm good with faces, and when I saw their obituaries, I knew they were passengers from my flights. Ryan sat quietly while he processed what he'd heard.
You probably had a bad feeling because it's weird for strangers to come up to you and hug you like that.
Ryan, I'm scared. Each of those people sat in the same seat as you, and they specifically asked if something was wrong with that seat.
I think it's just a strange coincidence. I mean, I'm glad you're afraid for my safety, but I don't think there's any connection.
She sat on the couch next to him, holding him tightly. You probably do think I'm crazy. He lifted her chin with his hand and looked into her eyes.
No, I don't think you're crazy. I think you're sweet and caring, and I love that about you.
Really?
Really. Now, let's go have a good day together. Maybe get out of the city and take a drive into the country.
I'd like that. My grandparents had a farm an hour away. It's beautiful in that area. Do you want to head that direction?
Let's get going.
He turned to her as they rose from the couch.
It's going to be okay.
He gently kissed her and held her next to him. As they walked out of her apartment, Cheryl glanced once more at the scattered newspapers. He tugged at her hand. Come on. The sun warmed their faces as they drove down the street with the windows open. Singing along to the radio, their voices blended perfectly. They neared the edge of the city when Ryan said,
See, it's a perfect day. Nothing to worry about.
A crash behind them made them jump. The car they had just passed now sat as a crumpled mess of twisted metal in the street. A chunk of concrete from the adjacent building crushed the car and anyone in it. Cars came to a complete stop as onlookers gawked in horror. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Into the Night Anthology podcast. Written by Caroline Giamanco, narrated by Nari Kwok. Theme music by Nico Rodriguez. All other original music, sound design, and editing by Omen Hawk Studios. You can find our links in the show notes. Into the Night is on your favorite podcatcher, so make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review to help other excursionists to join us. I'll see you next time. And remember, whether in the shadows or in the daylight, all twisted paths lead you into the night. Into the Night Anthology is a Creative Typo Entertainment production.